Did I get a TikTok, Shives? Let me check the chat. Let me check the chat. Yes, I did. David Colby gave me one. Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm slightly late. I'm not even going to tell you why. It's my own private business. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. So, as always, I will be answering questions first from my patrons and channel members who submitted their questions in ahead of time. So if you are with us in the live chat and you have a question you would like to ask in the live chat, or just something that you want to talk about with me, or just if you were planning on being generous and tossing a super chat my way, which I always encourage and appreciate, please, if possible, hold off on all of that until I get through the patron and member questions, because then I will spend the rest of the time just lavishing attention on the live chat. I mean, it'll be embarrassing. But until I get through the patron and member questions, I'm not going to pay any attention to the live chat. But hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Let's see what the patron and member questions are like this time, shall we? First one is from Carlisle the Cinephile. Hello, Carlisle, my friend. Hello, Steve. My wife showed me an article about a rumor that Jamie Lee Curtis was in talks to take on the role of Jessica Fletcher in a new Murder, She Wrote film. And my first reaction to that was an adamant nope. It got me thinking about how there are just some roles that are so tied with the people who play them that it's impossible to see anyone else taking on the part. Case in point, I can't see anyone other than Angela Lansbury as Jessica Fletcher, or anyone other than Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones. But then there are other characters like Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, etc., where I'm completely open to seeing them played by multiple actors. What do you think the distinction is? I think it's a couple of things. I think the characters you mentioned where you're open to seeing them played by multiple actors are all comic book characters, and comics are a serialized medium. Comics are a medium where we are just entirely accustomed to there being turnover in the creative teams. Like, you don't even think twice. If they say, oh, there's going to be a new artist on Batman this month, you don't even think about it. I mean, unless you might know who the artist is. You're like, oh, they're penciling Batman this month. Awesome. That's going to be great. But you don't think it's unusual. And you know that every time a new artist draws Batman, or every time a new artist draws Spider-Man, they're going to look a little different because of the particular style of that artist. And that's okay. That's good. That's part of the process. That's part of comic books. So comic book fans and people who are fans of Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, etc., they're used to their favorite characters looking different from time to time. They're serialized characters. They pass through many, many different creative hands. Whereas characters like Jessica Fletcher, Indiana Jones, until relatively recently, most Star Trek characters, you associate them with one particular actor because you've only ever seen them played by one particular actor. I bet if they do eventually produce a reboot of Murder, She Wrote and someone else plays Jessica Fletcher, whether it's Jamie Lee Curtis or somebody else, if it's good, and if the actor playing the new Jessica is good, you'll accept it. Just like same thing with Indiana Jones. If they ever make an Indiana Jones movie starring someone other than Harrison Ford and the person they hire to play Indy is good, you'll accept it. Just like people accepted, most of us accepted Chris Pine as Captain Kirk, or Zachary Quinto as Spock, or now Paul Wesley as Kirk in Strange New Worlds, and Ethan Peck as Spock in Strange. I mean, it doesn't happen until it happens. And after it happens, you think, oh, yeah, they're good, too. And then the character transitions from associated with one particular actor to open to interpretation by multiple actors. So I think there are a lot of factors at play there. Like, you can't picture anyone other than Angela Lansbury playing Jessica because nobody else has ever played her before. William Tucker, you seem wise for a youngster. Thank you. For the youngster part, I don't know about the wise part. What's your advice to a space cadet who wants to do YouTubing in 2025? It's the same as my advice that I've ever had for people who want to start YouTubing. Get a decent camera, get a decent microphone, get the best lighting that you can afford or that you're willing to invest in, and have something to say. or have something to make videos about, whatever your format's going to be, whether if you're going to do like just, talking to the camera, you're going to do, little mini documentaries or voiceover to animation or voiceover to images or whatever format you're doing, have a reason for doing it other than I want to do YouTube. Have something to say. Have a reason why you're making something that you want to share with people. And yeah, good camera, good mic. And if you're going to be on camera yourself, lighting is incredibly important. Richard Stievelbond, thank you for taking my question, Steve. Thank you for giving me money. I wonder sometimes where all the stories or movies of collective action making a difference to solve or address a societal problem have been. There are many story examples of an individual discovering they are extremely special, from Neo in the Matrix movies and all the superhero movies that have been pumped out in the last decade. I wonder if the lesson learned by American society is that it takes a savior to solve or at least address big problems, and that everyone else either has no agency or is powerless, so why bother trying? The only story, believe it or not, I can think of where a team of well-meaning people worked together to disrupt an evil plot was the movie Hackers. I know it's a bit of a silly analogy, but I sure wish we had more people willing to do something disruptive than hold signs and chant songs, sometimes because that doesn't seem to be working very well to hold off authoritarianism in America. What do you think? Well, in terms of, why aren't there more stories about collective action in popular media? I think that's just a function of the way storytelling works and the way audiences have sort of been conditioned to relate to stories. It's a lot easier to write a story that focuses on a single protagonist as opposed to writing a story that focuses on a large group of protagonists. It's a little bit easier to write an ensemble story if you're working in a series and you have a lot of episodes to deal with and you have enough time where you can give each character space to sort of get over with the audience. But if you're writing a film and you have 90 minutes, 2 hours, maybe a little bit more than that, depending on what the situation is and what the demands of the story are, it can be really, really difficult to tell a story about, especially if it's a story about multiple characters working together toward the same goal. It might seem counterintuitive at first, but I think it's almost easier to write if you're going to write a story or if you're going to write a movie that focuses not on one character, but on multiple characters equally, it's almost easier to have it be parallel stories where each individual character is kind of doing their own thing. And then eventually maybe they cross over like in an Altman film, where everybody's kind of in their own lane, and then they cross paths at a certain point in the story. It's almost easier to do something like that than it is to tell a single narrative where instead of having one hero or one protagonist, you have many different protagonists, because then you have the challenge of getting the audience to invest not just in one character, but in a bunch of characters who are all kind of doing the same thing or are kind of working toward the same goal. That can be a real challenge. So just in terms of, I mean, it's not impossible. Like I'm not saying that it shouldn't be attempted or that you're completely, I mean, I think you raise a good point, but I think the reason it's not just, well, let's condition society so that they learn only to believe in, strong men or charismatic leaders, and they lose the, the will or the motivation to get involved on the street level themselves. I think it's not that so much as it's just the way storytelling mechanics tend to work. But no, I mean, to your other point, I agree with you. I think it is going to be necessary, and it's necessary now for more people to be willing to get involved in terms of holding signs and chanting songs, because that's not nothing, but also in terms of, doing a little bit more. But the storytelling thing, I think a lot of it, at least as much of it has to do with storytelling mechanics as opposed to any other sort of larger purpose behind it. Matthias, do you think society has a rigid view of what it means to be male and female? And if it didn't, there would be less people who wished to adopt different pronouns. Maybe language had to adjust because society couldn't be more open-minded. As a cis straight male, I don't regard myself any less male or any less entitled to have a male anatomy when I try to be a better person and partner by being more empathetic, sympathetic, and more emotionally intelligent. I also don't regard someone who happens to have a female anatomy as less of a woman simply because they're wearing supposedly male attire and or if they have interests and skills that happen to be historically masculine or no matter who they're attracted to. Aren't we all just human beings in the end? With no particular feeling, drive, interest, or skill that is exclusively dependent on any particular anatomy? In which case, aren't masculinity and femininity just an illusion with pronouns not particularly representative of anything? Um, I don't think the problem is the existence of the categories. I think the problem is certain people forgetting what the categories are, what the purpose of the categories is, and confusing the map for the territory. This is a problem I see a lot in people who get really, really attached to a specific taxonomy, and they kind of forget that the taxonomy refers to something, and that's its value. That's its utility. We have this concept, we have these two concepts of male and female, of masculine and feminine, and each concept has a group of particular traits that are usually associated with, people in those categories. So if someone is a man, most of the time they have not, they don't have every masculine trait, but they probably have a lot of traits that are considered masculine that a lot of other men have. And same thing with women. But the lines dividing the categories are not impenetrable. It's not absolute. It doesn't apply to everybody. There are exceptions. And the whole point of the categories and of the concepts is to be descriptive of reality. So it needs to be elastic enough. And we need to remember that it's supposed to be elastic enough so that when we do have individuals who, let's say, like in your examples, someone is a cis woman, but she has a lot of conventionally masculine attributes or interests or whatever, that we don't we don't lose our minds over that. That's fine. That's completely fine. That's a part of being human. Same thing with a man. A man might be, have it might be a cisgender man, but have characteristics that are more traditionally considered to be feminine. Okay, that's completely fine, or at least it should be. We shouldn't tie ourselves up in knots over it. These are just categories that are applied on sort of general principle that help us to categorize things and organize things and understand things on the macro view, but we shouldn't treat them as though therefore we as people are defined by these categories. You know what I'm saying? So it's not so much that masculinity and femininity are an illusion and they're of no value at all. It's that people get too attached to those concepts and they forget that those concepts are supposed to be referring to actual people and how they exist in real life. And if there's any conflict between the two, the shortcoming is on the part of the category and how we have conceived it and understood it, not on the part of the people who are who they are and are real and exist, no matter whether or not you think they are properly fit into their category. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? And here's another one from Matthias via YouTube, because if you are a patron and a channel member, you do have the option of submitting 2 questions if you want. Hi, Steve. A moral question for you. In the UK, we're also divided on abortion, even within left, centrist, and right-wing political parties. But I understand the political consensus is that as a rule, abortion should only be legal before the viability date, currently estimated to be 24 weeks, and I understand occasionally lessened by a week each time medical science is judged to have significantly advanced. My question, if an elected representative is personally against abortion, but represents a constituency where the overwhelming consensus is that abortion should be legal before viability, is that representative morally obligated to vote as the people in their constituency would expect, or would it be acceptable to abstain? I'd advocate the former, no matter how much it tested the representative's faith, especially if it was a close vote. I think elected representatives should be free to vote however they want. I don't think an elected representative is bound to vote in accordance with whatever they find the majority opinion of their constituents to be. I don't think, I mean, and other people feel differently about this. We don't elect representatives to go to legislatures, to parliament, to Congress, or state legislatures here in the United States to be robots, right? We elect them because we have made, when we vote for them, we have judged, okay, of the available options, this is the best person to represent me, right? And they win the election and they go and they represent the people politically, and they derive their power from the support and the will of those people. But while in that office, I think they have no obligation whatsoever, morally or politically or legally or otherwise, to vote in any way where they think their constituency thinks they should. Now, if they ignore it, then next time an election comes around, their constituency may decide, hey, you completely ignored our interests. You acted in a way that was completely contrary to what we wanted you to do. We're going to elect somebody else to replace you. That's how I think that should work, right? That's how I think that should work. I don't think a representative, once elected and in office, is under any obligation to vote any particular way. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to have an opinion on it. I mean, if my elected representative voted for a bill that I found to be morally repugnant, I would be against that vote, and I would hold that vote against them the next time it came time to decide whether or not I was going to vote for them, whether it was in line with the consensus of people in my district or not, right? But no, I don't think there is any obligation to vote as the people in their constituency would expect. If the people in their constituency have a problem with how they voted, that can be sorted out come the next election. The very tired and annoyed Some Random Geek. Hello, Steve. I have a Blue Sky post that details why my friends Naz the Nico and Linaquin need about $450 or more this week. And by the way, if you're interested, I did put that link that you're seeing on screen right now, the Blue Sky link to Geek's post. That is linked in the description of this live stream that you're watching right now. Just go down to the description bar, and it's at the top of the links. And I also shared it, reposted it on my Blue Sky as well, if you want to take a closer look at it. And I would encourage you to do that. You can show it to your audience if you want. There you go. The Cliff's notes are Naz didn't receive her SSI payment of $945 at the beginning of the month. They got $500 quickly after that, but they still need money for everything. And then I have another friend who needs $110 for a water bill. And then I have another friend who hasn't eaten anything for a week because they're out of food and don't get their food stamps until the 12th. And don't forget Joanna in Phoenix asking for money each month. When you read this, Steve, I will get paid and donate what I can to LQ and Naz. I am just going to be forever tired. I'm going to try to work 11 to 12-hour days at my job as long as I can get away with that to try and support my friends and stream when I'm not working. Capitalism is killing my friends. And just, I'll again, as I usually do with Geeks questions, I'll encourage you now and I'll remind you at the end. CharityLinks.page has a lot of this information for if you are able to and you do feel moved to help out these friends of ours who are having some trouble making the bills. All of that information for them and a lot of other people that need help are listed in CharityLinks.page, and it is also linked in the video description. Danny K. Hi, Steve. I know you have your misgivings about Star Trek Lower Decks as a comedy, but how would you rate it as a work of Star Trek separate from its comedic value? Are there any examples from it that you think properly captured the ethos of the franchise in a meaningful way? Thanks. Hope all is well. Well, yeah, I don't think it's a bad representative of Star Trek in terms of diversity or political viewpoint or anything like that. I mean, yeah, I think it's a perfectly fine Star Trek show. It certainly doesn't betray any of the, the core principles that we have seen throughout the previous iterations of the franchise. In terms of, it does pretty good in terms of on-screen representation. The characters are all racially diverse. There are a couple of, I think they're mostly just background characters, but there's the woman who is a crew member of the Cerritos who's wearing a hijab, who sparked some short-lived, thankfully, controversy among the fan base because they were like, religion doesn't exist in the 24th century. Why is there a woman wearing a hijab? You know? And I think along a similar line, there's a guy wearing a turban, I think, at some point, who is presumably a Sikh from the way the turban is tied. And, you know, I appreciate things like that. I wish that those things were more prevalent in the live action shows. So I give it a lot of points for that. So yeah, just as a work of Star Trek in terms of like upholding the values of other Star Trek shows and other things that Star Trek has stood for in the past. No, I think it rates completely satisfactorily on that. Yeah, no, there's no problem there at all. It's one of the reasons why when people, I mean, like, it's not my favorite show. I don't really like it, but like never in a million years have I ever even had the thought like they shouldn't have made this. This doesn't count. This shouldn't be canon. This isn't Star Trek. Like, come on. Come on. Like, just because I don't think it's that good of a show doesn't mean that I think it shouldn't exist or that it's some kind of abomination like other people think about like Discovery and shit. You know, it's like, come on, calm down. Some random geek who wants to remind everyone about the real Labor Day in 1,000 characters. Last week, we just had May 1st, May Day, the real Labor Day, International Workers' Day. The Labor Day in September is propaganda to divorce the real Labor Day from its radical roots. May Day is to honor the 8 anarchists who were falsely put on trial for throwing a bomb during the Haymarket Massacre. Albert Parsons, August Spies, Adolf Pischer, Oscar Niebuhr, Louis Ling, George Engel, Michael Schwab, and Samuel Fielden. We don't know who threw the bomb. Some of those weren't there that night. Those men knew they were on trial for political beliefs. Of those 8, 5 were sentenced to death, 4 were hung, while the 5th took his own life. One last act of defiance against the state. The other 3 were eventually pardoned. Steve, I want your audience to read up on labor activism history, the events that led up to the Haymarket bombing. Kim Kelly for Teen Vogue writes a lot about labor movements, or read about the time the U.S. National Guard dropped a bomb on striking workers. Workers rise up. I would encourage that as well to look up the history of the labor movement. And not only, I mean, obviously, look for books and articles and do some reading on it. But there are actually some really, really good documentaries, even PBS documentaries about some of the key incidents in the early years of the American labor movement that are really, really good. There are some really excellent episodes of American Experience that focus on, important events in the history of the labor movement. Preface: I merely simply wish they would choose to go home and only affect their own individual circle instead of the entire world. I experienced disability when I, in person, interacted with the current leader of the Republican Party in 2015, as I did with 4 of the Republican presidential candidates. Then Secretary Clinton didn't have a campaign stop close to me. We fist bumped. He said, "You're a better man than me because I couldn't deal with using a wheelchair the way you have to." Then he blew kisses over his shoulder at me. It was all condescending. I would remind everyone that he allegedly told his nephew, who has a child who experiences disability in their life, while literally sitting in the very seat of American and international leadership, that their care is so expensive, those people should just die. The Republican Party is the party which explicitly states again and again it believes in the sanctity of life, correct? How and why could millions of American voters have voted for someone who says that about millions of people and fellow Americans, let alone about one of their own family members? Because he was running against a black lady who had a funny laugh. I mean, I hate to be glib about it. I hate to be a smartass about it. But I mean, how many, that's just one example. And yes, and hopefully a lot of us have heard that story that yes, Trump said to his own nephew, who has a special needs son. And he said this while he was president the last time in the White House. He said, they're so expensive. He's never going to have a good life. Maybe people like that should just die. He said that. And that's just one example of the countless, just absolutely awful things that this man has said. And in his life, And even if we limit it to people with disabilities, there's a story about him that went around for years that came up again in 2015, 2016, when he was running for president the first time, about how when he was, I think it's when Trump Tower was under construction. And he was going through the building with a building inspector, and the building inspector pointed out that he was going to have to get Braille placed next to the buttons on the elevator so that blind people would be able to read the buttons, because he didn't have any Braille on the buttons. He just had the numbers sort of painted on. And the building inspector said, you're going to need to, building code requires, you're going to need to put Braille on there. And Trump said, that's not going to be necessary. There aren't going to be any blind people living here. As though that was just a completely acceptable thing to say to a building inspector. Like, he's a horrible, horrible person. Everybody knows he's a horrible, horrible person. Or at the very least, everybody has seen him be a horrible person. A lot of the people who support him just excuse it or rationalize it, or don't think it's horrible because they're the same fucking way and they don't think of themselves as horrible, so they don't think of him as horrible either. I mean, that's why. And what it comes down to is they voted for him because they identify with him, or because they think he's going to get revenge on the people that they want to get revenge on. He's going to fuck people that they think deserve to get fucked. And the alternative was a professional, accomplished, intelligent, experienced woman of color, and they're just not going to vote for her. It comes down to that. And I wish it didn't. I wish it didn't. Farah Grimm, my question for the illustrious Steve Shives. Do you have any plans for additional Starfleet job interview videos? I'd love to see interviews with starship designers, considering they've apparently never heard of circuit breakers. Or maybe a retired admiral or something similar. Would you ever revisit any of those characters? I absolutely adored the Starfleet chaplain. I mean, I won't make any promises. I won't say absolutely 100%, but I have no intention of ever revisiting any of the characters. I want it to be a new character every time. And yes, I have plans for many, many more. I have ideas for a whole bunch more. I have the next one written, and I'm just waiting for some costume pieces to arrive to complete the character's look, and then I will be doing that one. So hopefully in the next few weeks there will be a new Starfleet jobs video. Yeah, but yeah, I want to keep doing those until I run out of ideas, because I love doing those. I think they're a lot of fun. It's a great way to satirize Star Trek. And also to satirize Star Trek, and in doing so, to also make commentary on real life stuff. So satirize Star Trek while also kind of making my poor attempt at doing what Star Trek does. So yeah, I have no intention of stopping doing those. And I have a bunch of them sort of on standby that I have at least a concept for, I have at least an idea for, or at the very least, it's a name on a list. It's like, oh, Starfleet, whatever. It's like, I have a list. Some of them are a little more than just the name. Some of them I have a little bit of a paragraph of just like an idea of what it might be. But yeah, there's going to be a lot more of those, and there's going to be a new one again, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. David K., would it please you to learn that in the part of Northern England I grew up in, Trump is a local dialect word for a particularly loud fart? I did not know the specifics of that. I didn't know that it was a Northern Ireland thing, or that it means a particularly loud fart, but I was already aware that Trump is a synonym for fart, and it pleases me very much. It pleases me very, very much to know that. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for the additional details. Air One Fire, who seeks peaceful coexistence. Hi, Steve. What are your favorite things about Captain Picard that make him a great character? At least in my opinion, he is one. Best wishes. I love how he shoots gigantic space slugs on sight. As soon as they burst out of a guy's chest, he's just like, to hell with this. And he vaporizes them immediately. No, I agree with you. I think he's a great character too. What makes him a great character? He's eloquent. He's principled. He he's diplomatic. He tries to find common ground with people. He tries to see other people's point of view. He's thoughtful. But the most important thing to me about him, and this is something that gets overlooked, and to be fair, this is something that the show doesn't show us all that much, but we do see it from time to time. He's willing to change his mind. He's willing to learn. He is usually like the stereotype of Picard, as with a lot of those TNG characters, because they are so static. The stereotype is that he's like a perfect hero. And he mostly is. There aren't very many situations in the show or the movies where Captain Picard is in the wrong, and we're meant to think he's in the wrong. Like, he's almost always in the right, and, you know, doesn't do anything bad. But because I've watched the episode so many times, and because I've talked about it several times just recently in various contexts and various videos, I've really come to appreciate the turn he makes toward the beginning of the episode, The Measure of a Man, when he is defending Data as Data is fighting to establish his rights as a person. And at the beginning of that episode, Picard is not totally on Data's side. Like, he's not against him. He's obviously sympathetic to Data, but Picard he seems ready to let Starfleet take him. You know, they have that meeting in the ready room where Picard says, look, you know, I hate to lose you as an officer. You've been great, you know, an invaluable member of the crew here on the Enterprise, but I have to consider Starfleet's interests as well. And, you know, what if they could figure out how to make more datas and have a data on every ship? Like, that would be an incredible advantage for us. Like, he's sympathetic to Data, but he's kind of on board with what Maddox wants to do. And then Data changes his mind. Data appeals to him. Data points out where he's wrong. Data says, if this was any other member of the crew, would you let them go through with this? He says, you know, Geordi's visor lets him see beyond the normal visual spectrum for most people. So in that sense, his eyes are better than biological eyes. So if Starfleet said, okay, from now on, every member of Starfleet has to have their eyes removed, and they're all going to get a visor, and they're all going to see like Geordi, and you don't have a choice, would you be okay with that? Or would you not be okay with it? But if you're not okay with that, why are you okay with him doing something to me against my will, without my consent? And it clicks. Picard realizes, oh, you're right. I was wrong. You know, you showed me the error of my ways. And from that moment, he's filled with resolve that he can't let them do this to Data. Like, he almost was willing to let them. And that's a really important moment for that character, I think. And that is it's a good characteristic just for a person to have. We should all be willing and able to recognize where we've gone wrong, to change our minds, to be open to new information, or to be persuadable by people. And it's important for heroes in fiction to have that, because it's just more interesting. Like, a perfect hero is not that interesting. A flawed hero is interesting. A character who isn't always right and is willing to see that and is willing to adjust. That's a lot more interesting than a character who's just always right 100% of the time. So, and Picard is still right about 99% of the time, but every once in a while you get a little glimmer of fallibility, and I like that. David Colby's been on a long road getting from there to here. You too. My friend and I have been watching Enterprise. I think we were way too mean to Enterprise. Is it perfect? Nope. But so far, most of the episodes have been good, with the notable exceptions being Unexpected and Cold Front. Strange New World, absolute banger. Civilization, shockingly good. I like how Archer's cabin is basically a tiny closet, and everyone is scared of the transporter. Fortunate Son was also really good. Jolene Blaylock also, I think, does not get enough credit for being a really good Vulcan. I'd say she's about as good as Tim Russ. It's also really funny that they're trying to ship Archer into Paul, and they have negative chemistry. Then she has one scene with Trip, and it's like, come on, kiss him already. Also, you'll have to take my word for this, but Connor Trenier is fucking gorgeous. I do not remember him being this handsome. So long story short, if Enterprise had just cut the temporal Cold War stuff and just been the good parts, it'd have been good. Well, yes, of course. If you if you just cut out everything but the good parts, of course it would be good. I mean, look, I prefer Enterprise to Voyager. If I'm ranking the Star Trek shows, I'm probably not going to rank Enterprise all that high, but it's certainly not the worst, and it definitely has its moments. I mean, I agree with you. There are episodes of Enterprise that are just outstanding. And like Voyager, it was a show that had a ton of potential that it rarely, if ever, fully lived up to. And that is frustrating. But it had good bones. The cast is fantastic. I love the production design. I love that version of the Enterprise. I love that set. I love how, low tech it is. I love that there's buttons, there's switches. They have to open the doors. The doors don't just automatically open. There's not a fucking touch screen in sight. It's very industrial. It's very mechanical. It looks like, it doesn't look actually like the interior of a real submarine, but it's reminiscent of that. It looks a lot more like that than a typical Star Trek ship does. So there's a lot about Enterprise that I really, really like. And there are some episodes that I think are terrific. But yeah, the temporal Cold War stuff, not so much. When they really leaned into like the prequel-y fan servicey stuff in the 4th season, a lot of that I really lost patience with. But great look, great set design, great cast, and every once in a while a really good episode. So no, I would certainly not. I'm not an Enterprise hater at all. Cast Iron Chaos. Funny how we never hear about conspiracy theorists in the bottle city of Kandor. The government of Krypton was able to deny reality to the point where they let their own planet blow up, which means there had to have been a right-wing conservative movement even there. In the famous story For the Man Who Has Everything, Superman imagines his own father joining one of those ultra-right hate groups using the excuse of freeing the Phantom's own prisoners. So what if there's a political organization in Kandor that denies Krypton exploded and says the city of Kandor is actually a prison fashioned by Superman to keep them imprisoned? But just wait, you super libtard. They're going to escape this glass dimension and make Krypton great again. P.S. The Superman theory was a great parody of real-life insane conspiracies, but it disappeared after Doomsday Clock. This isn't accurate because conspiracy theories never die, unfortunately. No, I think it's a good idea. You're right. I do think in that situation, a lot of those people would be, or at least some of those people would be hardcore conspiracy theorists. And I think there's the seed there for a story. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Dana, tired and with too much to do, and yes, I know it's my own fault. Well, then I won't say it too, if you've already admitted it. Hi, Steve. I was at a conference for what I call our not exactly a union during last Ask Away. I was bummed to miss it, but it was great to be with other educators who share my passion for workers' rights. Last Thursday, May Day, I went to a rally supporting the first contract negotiations for UAW Local 42, the union at the VW plant here. I even made a sign that says honk for fair pay, and some people did. On Sunday, there was a workshop by Standing Up for Racial Justice with panelists from local progressive orgs. None of this was disruptive, but that may not be needed. In Blueprint for Revolution, Sergej Popvik shares tactics used to bring down dictators like Milosevic, Ceausescu, Pinochet, and Mubarak. Driving slowly or releasing a flock of turkeys into a city are actions that may be more of a nuisance than a disruption, yet they helped dismantle brutal regimes. But they did take coordinated effort. All of this is to ask, what would it take to get you to attend a protest, Steve? I don't really know. We talked about this in private. I have gone to an occasional protest over the years. I went to the Women's March in 2017, the one that took place right around the first Trump inauguration, and that was a really cool experience. But, generally speaking, I'm not really a get up and go to a protest kind of person. So, I mean, what would it take to get me to attend? I don't really know. I don't really know. I don't really think about it. I mean, it's not impossible. It may be increasingly likely if things continue to get worse and worse and worse in our present predicament. But I don't know. I don't know. Superman's pal Agent Meister, up and away, Webb. Peldor Joy, Steve. I got talking to someone about Christopher Reeve recently, and it reminded me of the time I read his autobiography. My God, what a book. I think it's fair to say that apart from portraying Superman, Reeve is best known for the catastrophic injury he suffered. It's a book I feel everyone should read, and it taught me that it is possible to come back from disaster, no matter how bleak things may seem. On a lighter note, it was also because of this book that I saw the movie Somewhere in Time, a wonderful little film from 1980 that stars Reeve alongside Jane Seymour and Christopher Plummer. Have you seen it? And have you read Reeves' autobiography? If not, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Reeve in general if you have time. Finally, there's a Superman comic out there called Up in the Sky. Tom King has been on the receiving end of a lot of flack lately, but he knocked it out of the park with this one. And Andy Kubert's art ain't bad either. It's well worth a look. Well, thank you for the recommendation. That one has been on my to-read list for a while. I have not actually gotten around to reading it yet. But it has been on my to-read list, so I will redouble my efforts to check it out. I have not read Christopher Reeves' autobiography. I have seen Somewhere in Time. Actually, also just recently, just within the last couple of weeks, I watched Death Trap, which Christopher Reeve is in alongside Michael Caine and Diane Cannon. And that came out around the same time. That was early 80s. And he's excellent in that. He's just great. He was such a good Superman, and he was so associated with Superman that I think a lot of people don't realize just what a good actor he was in general, just what a unique and appealing screen presence he was. And I mean, you see little glimmers of his versatility in Superman, because of course his Superman is like the most upstanding guy imaginable. You know, he's noble and kind and just, you know, the best person who ever lived. His Clark is more comedic, and you get to see what great comic timing he has as Clark, and he's really good. And you see that in a very, very different way in Death Trap. I mean, his character in Death Trap is nothing like his Clark Kent at all, and the style of humor is even different. But you see the timing, you see the wit, you know, you see the little twinkle in the eye, or the little smirk pulling at the corner of the mouth. And he's just great. He's a great actor. And yeah, he did a lot of movies other than Superman. And I don't want to detract from his work as Superman, because obviously he was, I mean, a once in a lifetime Superman, but he was great in general. He was a wonderful actor, and he could do heavy, serious drama. He could do, you know, romance. He could do comedy. He was great. He was great. So yeah, Christopher Reeve. How about him? General Contact Unit Problem Child. This is a follow-up from my last Q&A. Here's my best case scenario for U.S. electoral politics. AOC runs and wins the presidency in 2028 in a landslide, too big to steal. Democrats also take both houses, abolish the filibuster, and pass major progressive reforms: Medicare for all, an $18 minimum wage, UBI, and green jobs programs, basically FDR 2. What do you think the GOP would do in response? Would they moderate like they did after the original New Deal, or double down on their current path, even if it seems electorally non-viable? I think the latter seems more likely at the moment, and my concern with that is unless a new party replaces them as the U.S.'s second party, the GOP will eventually regain power, even if it's just because the Democrats have a scandal too close to election. They will win the presidency again. When that happens, fascists will be in charge again, and they'll try to dismantle all that progress. That's why I think just don't let them win again can't be your long-term plan. Well, but you've just described American history. I mean, that's what happens. In the immediate aftermath of FDR, you know, like, Republicans were out of power in terms of the federal government for decades. And other than World War II, which was, a little disruption, that's the period in the and there obviously I mean, racially it was still a fucking mess, but in terms of upward mobility and the economy, it was one of the best parts of American history. Like, it was a very prosperous period in the post-war era, and that was under predominantly Democratic rule. I mean, even when there was a Republican president, there was usually a Democratic, at least a Democratic majority in the House, and at times a Democratic majority in the House and the Senate. So that's just the way it goes. It ebbs and flows. It goes in cycles. I don't think there's any way, like, if our goal is, if the goal is AOC wins the presidency in a landslide, Democrats take control of both houses, pass all of these progressive reforms, which I agree would be amazing, and I support every single one of these things, and then it's just going to be, and then we have a guarantee that it's always going to be like that forever. There is no such thing. Like, it's always possible that even if it's decades down the road, it's always possible that the Republicans or some other right-wing party will eventually regain power, because the American people don't have a lasting memory. Eventually the right wing will gain power again and will start to fuck that shit up. It's an unfortunate thing that I think we should do everything we possibly can to prevent and forestall as long as possible. I don't think we should just resign ourselves and say, well, it works in cycles, and I guess it's just the Republicans' turn to fuck everything up. Like, no, fight it, but recognize that that's just the way things have always worked. You make progress. You make progress as much as you can for as long as you can. You fight as hard as you can to make as much progress. Eventually, that runs out of steam. Hopefully, that doesn't happen for a very long time and you're able to get way, way far down the road. But eventually, that runs out of steam, and the forces of regress and reactionary take over and wind back a lot of or hopefully not too much, but at least some of the progress you made, and then it starts over and you have to fight your way back up. It sucks, but that's just the way it has always worked. Progress is never permanent. Progress is something that has to be not only constantly fought to increase, but constantly fought to defend. And I really don't see a way of breaking out of that long-term cycle. Steve, post-Trump regime, who do you think has the potential to make America great again? Because let's face it, America will be needing to be made great again after Mango Mussolini is done. Personally, my hopes are strong on Pete Buttigieg, AOC, and Adam Schiff. Well, I like all three of those. I don't know if I see Adam Schiff as a president. I think he would, I think he was great in the House. I think in the context of the Senate, that's someone that you want on your side. I don't know if he necessarily has the personality and the charisma to be a president. But Buttigieg, AOC, sure. Cory Booker, I don't think she's old enough yet. But Jasmine Crockett, maybe she is. I'm not sure how old she is. But there are a lot of Democrats, especially a lot of younger Democrats in the House or around the country, or even some not so young ones. I think Tim Walz is great. I think Governor Pritzker is great. He's way too old now, but Ed Markey in the Senate, he's, I don't think he's way past his expiration date to be a presidential candidate, but he's another one who I think is just fantastic. But I think it's probably a mistake to pin all of our hopes on a single person. I do think we're going to need to rally around a single person for a candidate at some point. I don't know who that will be at this point. It could be AOC. It could be Mayor Pete. It could be somebody we haven't even heard of yet. Who knows who it could be? It could be the mayor of my state, Wes Moore. He's been talked about. He's not one of the front runners, but he's someone who has been talked about, and I guarantee you he's on some lists at the DNC of a future star of the party, and he should be. So who knows? I really don't know who it's going to be. but hopefully it will be someone with a large and determined progressive coalition behind them to do what needs to be done. The Grumpy Monkey. How now, Steve? Do you have any hobbies? With the amount of videos you're making, you seem to be always working, but how do you pass the time when you're not doing anything YouTube related? You mentioned more than once your love for all things NASA, so have you ever gone stargazing with a telescope? A while back, you gave us a tour of your DVD shelves, so I'd love to know when was the last time you watched something from that collection that wasn't for YouTube and just for the hell of it. Also, I really enjoyed Jack's video about running for Pope. How's that going, by the way? Sore subject. Being from Ireland, I'm impressed with his accent, even if I can't quite place it. And it's a damn sight better than attempts made by the likes of Tom Cruise and Richard Gere. I'm also enjoying the videos where you play two characters. They're written, acted, and edited in such a way that I sometimes forget that it's just one guy I'm looking at. Bula bus Stefan, which is an Irish term that translates as "well done, Steve." Well, thank you. And I'm sorry for probably pronouncing that terribly, even though you wrote it phonetically. As far as Jack's accent, keep in mind, yes, Jack is from Ireland, but he has lived in the United States for many years. So any irregularities in his accent are due to that. And that's all. Let's all just try to remember that. Yeah, what was the last time I watched one of my DVDs for pleasure? I watched, I have the original Godzilla versus King Kong, or King Kong versus Godzilla. That's one of the Blu-rays I have. I watched that a few weeks ago. I watch a lot of wrestling, not always from the DVD collection. Some of it's from YouTube or from Peacock, where the WWE has a lot of its stuff. I watch wrestling, especially old wrestling, for pleasure a lot. I don't know if I really have any hobbies per se. I mean, I exercise in the mornings during the week. That's not really a hobby. I go for walks when weather permits. That's kind of a combination of exercise and a hobby. You know, it's nice to get out and, you know, get some sun on my face and be out of the house. But in terms of, like, you know, I don't build birdhouses. You know what I mean? I don't have like hobbies. When I have spare time to myself, I usually spend it watching something. I'll watch wrestling or watch a movie or watch a TV show. You know, yeah, something like that. But yeah, you're right. I am working a lot, and I am watching things specifically for YouTube stuff a lot, but I try to make time for myself. I try to make sure that I'm away from the computer as much as I can be, and not in front of a camera or doing YouTube related stuff as much as I can be. And usually when those times are here, I'm watching something. I'm relaxing on the couch and watching something. Thank you very much for your kind words. Brian Baker. Steve, great job on keeping your audience updated on the latest news about the Trump criminal organization. This week, I am looking forward to the second season of Poker Face because I so enjoyed the first season and the similarities between the show and Columbo. What, other than continuing baseball games and wrestling matches, are you looking forward to as we approach summer? I know Strange New Worlds is coming back soon, but are there any television or movie events that you are particularly interested in seeing? Your video on John Cena AI pedo was funny, and I always appreciate the news parodies. You are doing a great service for us by letting us know we're not alone, Brian. Well, thank you very much. Speaking of John Cena, second season of Peacemaker coming in August. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, Strange New Worlds, whenever it decides to drop. Fantastic Four movie coming out, the new Superman movie coming out. Really looking forward to both of those. I'm really, it's still ongoing at the moment, but I'm really enjoying The Last of Us season 2. I love The Rehearsal, Nathan Fielder's current show that's now airing new episodes on Max. I never miss one of those. I'm really looking forward to Poker Face as well. I haven't had a chance to watch the new episodes yet. I might try to watch one of those tonight when I'm done with this, because I also really, really loved the first season of Poker Face. I thought it was just outstanding. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming out, you know, on TV and in the movies that I'm looking forward to. Simon Moody. I don't have a question, but instead a thank you. Last week, just after the 100 days of Trump 2.0 passed, I sat back and listened to late seating the Twilight episode. The best thing I've heard in a while, and at a moment when it was needed. I was torn between laughing and wanting to give Jason a hug. It's just a film. And as much as I loved it, yes, it beat out your pain for the Lord of the Rings films, amazingly. And part of me is sad we won't get to hear your reactions to the other 4 films. Even I am not cruel enough to want to put him through that. So again, thank you both. Jason's great. I mean, I feel bad saying this because I know it pains him. Jason is so good when he doesn't like the movie that we're reviewing, because Jason sells it. When I really don't like a movie, I don't sell it as much. Like if I watch a movie and it's a bad movie, I don't feel as though anything's been taken from me. I don't feel as though my life has been, diminished in any way most of the time. Even the Lord of the Rings movies, I would just rather not watch them. I just think they're mostly not very good and boring. I don't feel like, I've been cursed. I just don't think they're good movies. But Jason, when Jason sees a bad movie, I mean, he's such a showman. And I think he's just naturally kind of a more emotional guy than I am anyway, but he really plays into it. And he just sells his discomfort, his dismay, his hatred in extreme cases of the movie. It is wonderful. He's great. I mean, he's great when he likes the movie too. He's a great critic. He's really insightful and really articulate. And if it's a good movie, if it's one of his favorites, if it's a movie he loves, he's great in those situations too. But I mean, when it's a movie that he just absolutely hates, he's so good. He's so good. So I'm glad you enjoyed the Twilight episode. I'm glad that was a fun one to do. It was not a fun movie to watch, but it was fun to do. Anti-Pope Donculus I, and my condolences, your anti-holiness, for you not being chosen by the College of Cardinals. Bless you, my son. Well, my dream of becoming the next Pope has officially been dashed. I will take some of the blame for the loss. I entered the race late, didn't lay the groundwork in advance, undoubtedly split the Shives vote with Jack McPherson. We really could have used a primary. My ground game was atrocious and never found the right messaging with the demographic that actually counts, the College of Cardinals, who coincidentally are the only ones that get a vote. That does give me the opportunity to pontificate on the importance of getting our proverbial shit together now for the 2026 midterms. Support better candidates in primaries. Push for better policies. Establish an unwavering message and commitment to resisting fascism. Get out the vote. No question, just a pissed off anti-pope. I agree 100% with all of that. Everybody listen to the anti-holy father. Or the holy anti-father, or the whatever he is, the anti-pope. Listen to what he said, because he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. And and also congratulations for setting yourself up as an anti-pope. Jack McPherson didn't bother to do that. He's mostly just been, well, it would be stereotypical for me to say that he's just been drunk the entire time since he lost the papal race. So I won't say that out of cultural sensitivity. But he's been pissed. Jim P., as I'm writing this, there is a new pope and he's from Chicago. Word is that he's also a Cubs fan. Even though I'm an atheist, I'm taking this as divine intervention that my Cubs will 100% win the World Series this year. What do you think? Any unusual omens you enjoy believing in or have fun with yourself? Have a great show. Not so much. I do remember the last, not the last time they were in the postseason, but the last time it really felt like the Orioles might actually make the World Series was in 1997. They made it to the ALCS, and I think that series, it either went to 6 or 7 games. I can't remember if it went all the way to 7 games, but the Orioles were facing elimination, and on the Baltimore Orioles website, there was a graphic that was just simple. It was black with orange text, and it said, "Always believe, as long as there is an out or even a strike, there is a chance." And I printed that out and put it on the wall above the TV when I watched the game that night. And every time things would start to turn against us, I would look at that printout and just, try to summon my faith in the team and somehow project it to the stadium hundreds of miles away. Didn't work. They lost, but that was definitely a superstition or some attempt at spirituality that I indulged in that night. Mental ward. Why don't Data and the ship's computer talk to each other in code? I'd swear I remember scenes where Data was tapping on the ship's computer screens at ludicrous speed when he went crazy or was trying to save everybody. But why didn't he ever just open his mouth and make a carrier signal noise like we used to hear when we were dialing into America Online? And then hear a similar response from the computer. Before you give me the MST3K mantra, I'll have you know that I am relaxed. Well, yeah, I mean, you know the answer. It's because it's a TV show and we as the audience need to understand what's going on. And it's much easier to understand, oh, Data is getting information from the computer if it's him reading the computer at incredibly fast speed because he's an android, than him doing something that no human would ever do, that we might not pick up on right away. Although I have to say, the image of Data screaming like a modem at the computer and then the computer screaming like a modem back at him, and that using that as a means of exchange of information, that is really, really, really funny. The Curious Christian. As someone who is an atheist, do you ever enjoy Christian or other religious-based movies or movies centered around a religion? If so, which are your favorites and which do you hate? I just watched Conclave, and I 100% recommend it. It's a tiny bit slow to start, but it's 2 hours and worth it as a pseudo-election movie. I liked Conclave. I thought Conclave was very good. I like several of the Jesus movies. I really like Pasolini's The Gospel According to St. Matthew. I really, really like The Last Temptation of Christ. Willem Dafoe is my favorite Jesus. I also really like the original silent version of King of Kings. It's a little pious, it's a little overly pious, but it's really solid filmmaking. And if you're a fan of silent films, especially, it's worth watching. And I mean, there are more modern religious films that I watch that I know going in are going to be bad, but I watch them just to make fun of them and to sort of enjoy them ironically, like the fucking Kirk Cameron shit, or what was it? Courageous, the one about Christian cops from like 10, 15 years ago, or the Left Behind movies, or some of those cheapo, like direct to video apocalypse movies that were from Cloud 10 Pictures, the God's Not Dead movies, things like that. Like they're really bad movies. And in a lot of cases, they're really offensive, like their morality and their ethics and the particular form of Christianity, really small-minded and exclusionary and backwards that they are promoting is really, really gross and offensive. But they're fun to laugh at. Like you can, especially if you're watching them with friends and you can kind of Mystery Science Theater your way through them. They're a fucking ball to watch. But no, I enjoy a lot of religious themed movies. Yeah, Conclave is a good one. Last Temptation of Christ is a great one. The Two Popes. I just watched The Two Popes on Netflix the other day. It's like 10 years old at this point, but I watched it because, of all the Pope stuff happening. And it was quite good. M.W. Ridra. Hey, Steve, it's been a couple weeks. Do you have any further thoughts on the arrest of Judge Hannah Dugan for not cooperating with ICE? I'm still very bothered by this, but it seems like everyone's moved on to talking about the new American Pope now. Well, I'm very bothered by it too. The thing is, nothing else has really happened with it. I mean, she's not still in jail. She was released. Presumably she's going to be, either she's going to negotiate some kind of a plea deal or she's going to go on trial, or I'm not sure what, the next phase is, but we're sort of in a holding pattern right now. But it's outrageous. I mean, it's outrageous. Just like earlier today, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey was arrested for taking part in a protest, a peaceful protest. Apparently there was very little, if any, justification for arresting him, and yet it was done. So, I mean, it's extremely troubling. To put it mildly, it's extremely troubling that judges and elected officials, mayors, etc., who have stood up to Trump or stood up to Trump's goons as they have attempted to carry out his terrible policies. It's incredibly upsetting and frustrating and troubling that these things are happening. But as far as the Judge Dugan situation, I mean, we'll have to wait and see what happens with the next phase of her case. But the fact that there even is a case at all is ridiculous. Isaiah Taylor. So, Steve, what do you think of my Totally Spies live action movie idea? The plot begins in 1993 when Congress kills funding for the superconducting super collider in Texas. It was used in a secret Cold War DARPA weapons experiment called Quantum Anvil to develop singularity weapons. When the project is canceled, this enrages disgruntled military scientists, politicians, etc. So, a rough former U.S. Air Force general teams up with an international arms smuggling ring to smuggle the weapon on the black market or detonate the black hole device over a major American city, and the spies have to stop them. This part of the story takes place in the year 2000. I would like to take the cinematography from 2001 Spy Kids and adapt it for my film. 120 minutes. Suggestions? Yeah, make the 1993 stuff backstory that we maybe learn through a little bit of, hopefully, humorously delivered and pithy exposition, and make most of the movie the year 2000 stuff. I don't think we need to actually see all of them. The 1993 stuff is really clever and could be really entertaining and really funny depending on how that exposition is delivered on screen, but that shouldn't be the movie. The movie should be, the spies having to deal with this weapon being out there. Kara, aka the Tolkien nerd. Hi, Steve. Just a quick TOS question. I think sometimes TOS acts quite callously in cases where it isn't necessary or even warranted, e.g. wink of an eye. I know that the sped up people behave monstrously, but they feel they have no other choice. But at the end, Starfleet offers them nothing and just waltzes away. And we know they'll put beacons around the planet stopping other expeditions. So it seems so cruel to not even offer the bare minimum of help. Any thoughts, or am I overthinking this? I don't think you're overthinking it. I do think it's one of the differences between the approach of classic Trek and the approach of the Next Generation, because I do think Next Generation, especially once you get into sort of the prime of TNG, and once you get past like season 3 and it's really like up and running and it is the TNG that we usually think of, it's really impossible to imagine Captain Picard doing the same thing. Like, Captain Picard might put up beacons to warn ships off of the planet so that nobody else kind of wanders in. But he would also make it clear, like, we're going to talk to Starfleet and we're going to figure out a way to help you. Like, there would be a line of dialogue indicating that he wasn't just abandoning them to their own devices and putting up warning buoys to keep anybody else from coming. That, yeah, I'm doing that to protect our people, but don't lose hope because eventually we'll be back and we're going to help you. I think there would have been a line or two indicating that if it was a TNG episode, but because it was classic Trek, Captain Kirk was like, nope, we're not letting this happen again. Sorry. Screw you guys. We're safe and now it's your problem. See ya. I feel like it's just the way that they did things on classic Trek versus the way they did things in TNG. And it does seem a little harsh, especially if you compare it to the way they told stories on TNG, for sure. It certainly would seem harsh if you were one of the people on that planet. Glenn H, insert clever phrase here, but I think you already did. Hey, Steve, not much to write. Not much time to write this, as my wife and I are off to see the Cubs versus the Mets. She's a Cubs fan, and I hate the Mets, so it's a perfect match. No question, but just wanted to drop a comment in response to your latest Pope video, which included a myriad of cringeworthy Pope rhymes. Our local right-wing rag, the New York Post, had just a single headline today: Chicago Pope. That is both dumb and clever. Are those mutually exclusive at the same time? Anyway, have a great show. As someone who was an embarrassingly big fan of that particular medical drama, I am really, really, really angry and envious that I did not think of Chicago Pope. That's like, to me, it might not mean much to many other people, but you seem to appreciate it. And to me, that is just so good. Chicago fucking Pope. That's really good. That's really good. Russell, hey, Steve, I'm struggling with this. Typically, I'm in favor of small business owners, but recently there has been a major news article regarding a state senator who proposes to ignore the will of Nebraska voters by advancing LB 258 through its second round of debate. The bill is now headed to final reading, where it will require 33 votes to pass into law. What this means is Nebraska voters voted to raise the minimum wage from $9 an hour in 2022 to $15 an hour in 2026. Her reasoning is because it hurts small businesses. Here's the thing. She owns 34 supermarkets across Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri. Hardly call that small business owner. Oh, by the way, she's a Democrat. Her name is Jay Raybould. I only have two questions for you, really. One, what good is voting when the Senate can overrule us? And two, what's the point of capitalism when the government is run by big billionaires? Anyways, heard Stuffy won. Tell him congrats. Hopefully I will see you soon. I did work a double yesterday, so I may be sleeping. Take care. Well, it's not good. If the people voted, I assume it was a referendum. If the people voted to raise the minimum wage and then members of the Senate are interfering to subvert that or roll that back, I mean, that sounds like a really good reason to vote against anybody who supported that in the next election. And the same thing for the government being run by billionaires. It's one of the reasons people say, well, what's the point? Well, there is no point if we just give up. If we use that as motivation and get more involved, and it's a drum I beat relentlessly, vote in the primaries. Vote in your primary. And I'm not talking specifically at you, Russell. I mean, you may vote in every primary. That's great. But not most people don't vote in primaries. Vote in the primaries. Get involved. Voting is the easiest thing you can do to take part in our democracy. I don't think voting is enough all by itself. I think people should do other things as well, both in and out of electoral politics. But at the very least, you should be voting every single time you can vote. And that includes in the primaries. So if especially if it's a Democrat, if you're registered as a Democrat and one of the Democratic senators that represents your state supported a bill that you think is bullshit, that is in favor of wealthy business owners and hurts the regular working people of the state, that's where that person needs to be challenged in a primary, so that either they lose their seat to a primary challenger or they get such a scare from the primary that they think, oh shit, I have to be more mindful about what my constituents want. It's I referred to it in the answer to a previous question. They're not obligated to vote any particular way regarding the will of the people. But if they care about their career, if they care about getting reelected, they care about having support, they're going to want to know, they're going to have to worry about it, because if they don't and they piss off too many of their voters, they could be out of a job. That's how it's supposed to work. But it only works that way effectively if enough people are actually actively and regularly involved. A lot of the problems with democracy are not inherent flaws in democracy. They're the result of people being apathetic and shirking their responsibility as citizens and not doing what they need to do to have that democracy be a flourishing, living, breathing thing that can be depended on. Siamak, who would have gotten his question in earlier in the week, but I had to hold off in case specific new crazy needed addressing. I can relate. Greetings, Steve. I hope you're well. So, my family has canceled all plans to travel to Iran to see family, really any international travel, which, given the age of some, likely means never seeing that family again. For most of my 47, nearly 48 years of life, the fear in traveling to Iran was what would happen upon entry or exit of Iran. And it wasn't always pretty or without significant incident. But now we're canceling because we're afraid of what may happen upon attempting re-entry home. My Iranian American, all U.S. citizen family is not traveling because they're afraid of American CBC. So you can see how that got me thinking about Andor. Thoughts on the new season? I love it. If I recall, you enjoyed season 1, but thought the heaps of praise it received to be a bit excessive. Curious what you think of season 2 thus far. I'll leave spoilers to your discretion. I'd like our reality to stop imitating our fiction, please, anytime. Boy, I agree with that. I don't know if I would say I enjoyed season 1. I enjoyed certain episodes of season 1. I really liked the heist episode. I really liked the prison break episode. I really liked the last episode. There might have been one more in there somewhere that I thought was good too, but the rest of it I thought was just incredibly tedious. And I was just looking, I was, like, come on, let's get on with this. Come on. Hey, let's have something happen, 12 episodes and there's like 3 episodes where something happens. I'm not a fan of that. But when it was good, it was really good. And I, I like the fact that it has a serious tone. I like the fact that it's not full of legacy characters and remember this, remember this, remember this. It doesn't feel super prequel-ish. It looks great. The performances are great, even though most of the time the actors are literally doing nothing. But the performances are great. The actors are great. Stellan Skarsgård is great. Every time he's on screen, I think, why isn't the show about him? Like, he's the most interesting character. Why isn't the show about him? Season 2 has been better in some ways, and it has been frustratingly the same in some ways. The first 3 episodes were so pointless, I think they could have just left them off entirely, and the season would have been better off for it. Like, did we really need to spend 3 entire episodes with fucking Mon Mothma and her family at that fucking wedding? Like, did we really need 3 episodes to accomplish whatever is accomplished in that storyline? It's ridiculous. Mon Mothma herself, an incredibly boring, almost unendurably boring character until she finally does something really interesting and really stirring. Like, she gives her big speech in the Senate in the most recent episode. And that's really good. That's really good. But it's like, okay, it only took almost 2 entire seasons of television to get this character to do something interesting. Andor himself is still mostly just standing around watching people do shit. Like, even when he's on a mission, like he goes on that mission to Gorman, right? And he's supposed to assassinate the ISB lady, Dedra, right? And there's like a massacre going on around him. And he's just, he's watching, he's making sure, he don't get shot. And every once in a while he might take a shot at somebody, but he's mostly just standing around waiting for shit to happen. Why is the protagonist of the series 2/3 of the way through, or 3/4 of the way through season 2 of this show, still mostly just standing around watching shit happen? It's incredibly frustrating. The pacing has been a little better in the latter half of the season. I think the more recent episodes, because they've accelerated events and they're kind of having to cram more into their remaining episodes, the pacing has gotten a little better. Not a lot, but a little better. It's cool to see Benjamin Bratt. Not very many people could step in for Jimmy Smits and sell me, but Benjamin Bratt has, in again, what little he's had to do, has been good as Bail Organa. And yeah, I mean, Diego Luna's good. He just doesn't have very much to do. And I don't really care about his character as a result. I was talking about this with someone earlier on Blue Sky, and he said something like, well, do you think that it's okay if the main character is sidelined because of how momentous the events are? And my response was, if I don't care about the characters, I don't care about the events. Like, I understand, I appreciate what the show is trying to do. I appreciate what the show represents. I appreciate the fact that it is a show about fascism and the everyday sort of slow motion pressure of fascism that people live under, and the messy and difficult business of rebelling against that fascism. And not all the rebels are equal, and not all the rebels are good, and not all the rebels are the same, and it's very disorganized and disjointed, and there's a lot of very difficult choices that have to be made. Like, the general idea of it is really good, and I appreciate it, and I'm glad it exists. I'm very glad that there is a work of unabashedly anti-fascist popular fiction that is out there at this moment. Like, I cannot stress enough how important and how good I think that is. But as drama, as something that I'm expected to watch and get invested in, unfortunately, for the most part, I don't give a shit about any of it. Like, I appreciate that the events are referring to real events, are metaphor, and that's important. But as I'm watching the show, like, if I don't care about any of these people, why do I care about the events? You know? So it still has its moments. There are still things about it I really admire and really like, but god damn it, it takes way too long to get where it's going. And god damn it, there are way too many fucking characters in it that it just expects me to watch, stand around while they wait to do stuff. So, yeah. But I'm still watching it, so I must be doing something. John Burns was disappointed that Cardinal Pizza Balls didn't get promoted to Pope. We need more pizza balls in the Vatican. So this new Pope with the new Pope smell, he's from Chicago, right? Think he's on a mission from God? A Pope like Jake Elwood? Maybe. You mean Jake Blues, not Jake Elwood. It's Jake and Elwood, not Jake Elwood. But anyway, whichever one wasn't Dan Aykroyd. I hope it's a John Belushi Pope, not a Dan Aykroyd Pope. I don't think I could handle that. But yeah, he's Pope Chicago. He's the Pope, or as was previously announced, Chicago Pope, which I'm a big fan of. And now I wish that was a show as well. Maybe we could get David E. Kelly to create a show called Chicago Pope? Joe McClory, this is, okay, 2 questions to go. Joe McClory, sometimes I worry I'm too nice. Even that seems too generous at times. I hate confrontation, and there are many times I will walk away from discussions, even when I think I could at least influence or be the person in the room that has friends and communities that the right is targeting. I worry I am not prepared if it gets much worse. Will I have the nerve to quit or lie on paperwork if my work in involuntary mental health involves keeping trans people until they agree to detransition? Will I speak up if ICE is allowed to take people from the hospital? I feel bad that I honestly don't know. I know your job is less likely to come into conflict, but have you put in thought about what to do if things get dangerous or harder? Like, for example, if YouTube were to start burying channels that were too supportive of trans people. Any advice on how to deal with everything right now? I haven't really put a lot of thought into that. I hopefully won't need to, but who knows? My advice would be this. Do the best you can. Hold the line as long as you can. But if and when there comes a time where you have to make a gut-wrenching decision to do something that you know is not what you should be doing, but is something that you have to do in order to look out for yourself or to keep yourself in a position where you can still do good perhaps in the future, do what you need to do and try to be forgiving to yourself, because you did not make the world. You did not create these circumstances. You are just someone who is trying his best to do his best in those circumstances. And the times we live in do not always allow us to be the people that we think we should be 100% of the time. You know, sometimes circumstances impose really, really shitty choices on us, and we have to make the choices that are available to us. And it's never going to feel good. You're never going to be proud of yourself. But I would urge you to at least be a little forgiving of yourself if you ever have to do something that is against your ethics or against your values, but you feel like you have to do it. It's the best option you have for yourself or for your future situation. You know, that would be my advice. For whatever that's worth. for whatever that's worth. Because there may be a time in the future after you make that difficult decision where you are still in a position to help someone who maybe wouldn't get the help if you weren't there. You know? And final question from Maggie Sermonara. Hi, hope you're well. I've heard you say you like 70s music. Top 5, please. Also, your feelings on the Counting Crows, if you have any. Not 70s, but okay. Top 5 70s. Jesus. Springsteen, Zeppelin, Al Green, The Band, Creedence Clearwater. How about that? I could go on and on and on. There are so many I didn't even name, but just off the top of my head, I would say that's a pretty good top 5. I like Counting Crows. God damn it. I know maybe Adam Duritz's hair was a little embarrassing, you know, a white dude with dreads. That's you know, I think that we're completely fine to make fun of him for that. But I like Counting Crows. I like Long December. That's a good song. Round Here, come on. If you don't like Round Here, I don't know what to tell you. Round Here is a great fucking song. So I like Counting Crows. All right, that's it for the patron and member questions. I will turn my attention to the live chat very shortly, but first, it's that time again. It's time for a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. This will go live on its own as a standalone YouTube short on this channel tomorrow, but because you are watching Ask Away right now, you get to see the whole thing before anybody else. So please now enjoy a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. What about if Lindsay Joe is having an affair with Dr. Byron Hawk, the optometrist?
Didn't they have an affair last year?
Nine, that was when Lindsay Joe had an affair with Dr. Marlon Eagle, the ophthalmologist. She has a type.
Oi, let's pretend I haven't paid any attention to anything you lot have done for the past several years, and explain to me what the hell is going on right now.
I'm writing to my pen pal, Louise.
And that's a 3-person job, is it?
4, if you want in, young Mr. McPherson. Become one of us.
The short version is this, Jack. I met my pen pal Louise through the letters section of Soap Opera Digest back in the 90s. At first, we'd write about what was happening on our favorite soaps, but over the years, those all got canceled, so now we take turns writing to each other about the latest developments on imaginary soaps that we make up. Mine is called Destiny of Love, and it follows the tumultuous lives of the residents of Destiny Bay, a small town on the coast of Virginia.
So you're making up plots for a non-existent series to entertain a person you've never met?
That is correct.
Have you done the one where the handsome newcomer turns out to be a serial killer?
Twice.
It's been a few years since the last time, though. Plus, Louise is like 85. How good could her memory possibly be at this point? She still sends me a card on my birthday every year without fail. How does she know when your birthday is? How does she even know who you are?
I told her about Hans after I used him as the basis for a character on Destiny of Love. Hans Carlson, the mysterious but intriguing theater director.
Did you ever tell her about me? I was the basis for a character, wasn't I? Steve Stevely, the handsome florist who was secretly an assassin?
We talked about it, but ultimately I worried that the character wouldn't appeal to the audience's sensibilities.
The audience? Meaning Louise, that semi-lucid mummy? I will hear no more words against Louise. She is a grand old lady possessed of a sharp and a saucy wit, and I would kill for her. Sounds like he should be the serial killer.
Oi, I'm the bloody serial killer.
What about Jack McGuire? Could that be the name of a serial killer?
If it's not, Jack McPherson might be.
Jack McGuire. I like that. Oh, look, my live chat widget isn't working. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the Stuffy short. Let me see if I can jerk a hole in this. Come on. Well, anyway. Still not working. Dana, you want what to be a regular series? Dana said, I want this to be a regular series. Do you mean them talking about Stuffy's imaginary soap opera? There it is. How annoying was that? Anyway, I need to write soaps. No, those are just funny soap ideas. Those aren't those. I wouldn't want to write entire episodes. Anyway, let me catch on some of these super chats. Yes, John Byrne says, Dan Aykroyd was Elwood Blues. I'm sorry, I messed up. Forgiven. All is forgiven. And John also says, no Gordon Lightfoot, Philistine. I like Gordon Lightfoot. It was top 5. There's a lot of people I left out. I like Gordon Lightfoot too. Carlisle the Cinephile with a super chat. Thank you very much, Carlisle. Says, how's Jack taking losing the papacy to someone else? He's not planning on burning down the Vatican in an act of petty vengeance-fueled arson, is he? I mean, I think he definitely would, but fortunately for the Vatican, Jack is on the no-fly list. So I don't think he's going to be able to burn down the Vatican. He's probably going to burn down some places locally just to kind of get it out of his system. Brian Baker with the super chat. Thank you very much, Brian. Says, can we start calling the creature that lives on Trump's head an attack tribble? Yeah, does it attack people economically? It attacks people verbally based on their race. It passes discriminatory laws and dispatches ICE agents after people. It's that kind of attack tribble. Stephen G. Clenard with a super chat says, bless you, my child. Your take on Andor borders on blasphemy. You must repeat 100 times. Don Henley must die. And repent. Also, how are we doing in selling indulgences? Money, money, money. I mean, was I supposed to sell the fucking things for you? Let me see. All right, I think that's all of the super chats for now. Oh, thank you, Arrow on Fire. Arrow on Fire says the stuffy short was very funny. Daryl Lett says, what surprises you most about the 2024 elections? I was by Michigan having no ballot proposals. Kamala flipped maybe 2 county equivalent, and a Dem carried your congressional district. I wasn't necessarily surprised that a Dem carried my congressional district because my congressional representative has been a Democrat for a little while now. But I was relieved because, I mean, it's not my district is not a safe blue district. So I'm always a little, whenever the Democrat does win, if the Democrat wins, I'm always a little relieved, like, oh, good. Huh. What surprised me the most? I can't really think of anything right now. I feel like I'm suppressing memories from the 2024 election. 255 AD says, you said I just described American history, but didn't the GOP move to the left rather than doubling down after FDR? Like there were 3 semi-reasonable GOP presidents before Reagan. Yeah, I'm not saying that the Republicans won't ever adapt. I mean, for Christ's sake, the parties completely switched places at one point. Like the Republicans, 120, 130 years ago, the Republicans were the progressive party and the Democrats were the more right-wing party, and they switched places. So, I mean, it's not like things never change and the cycle just repeats, perfectly every time. But in general, if the fear is, the Democrats take control, pass a whole bunch of progressive stuff, but then the Republicans just get back into power again and fuck it all up. That's kind of what happens. Dana says, no, I want you to have them act out the soap opera plots. Stuffy and the gang begin performing the soaps. No. No. Kara says, have you thought of combining 6 Stuffy episodes into a minor episode like this, like the shorts, like having like a continuing storyline that ties several of the shorts together? Yeah, I have. I haven't really. I might do that at some point. Come up with like a little serialized thing that I can do through 6 Stuffy shorts. That is a really good idea. I don't have a specific idea yet, but yeah, I might do that at some point. Yeah. John Collins says, Bill Maher and his White House invite, doesn't he realize people that perhaps have borderline personality disorder or some sort of psychosis, they act totally different in different settings? Yeah, and so do people who don't have those conditions. Like, that's the other thing. Like, Trump is a liar and a con man. So to treat, but Trump was really cool and nice to me at dinner, to treat that as though that means anything is absurd. Like the fact that any intelligent person would, I had dinner with Trump and he was totally different. He was super cool. Like he's a fake. He's a liar. He's a grifter. It means nothing. It's embarrassing. I'm not a Bill Maher fan at all, but it's fucking embarrassing. See you, John. Steve Schmeling says, saw your retro review. No Grim Reaper jokes. Oh, because of William Sadler. No Grim Reaper jokes. No Grim Reaper jokes. You can't, I feel like there are enough references in that one. You can't make a reference to everything. Steely Dan. See, yes, she said top 5. I left a lot out. Steely Dan. Nothing against Steely Dan. Steely Dan. Pink Floyd. Well, who else? Curtis Mayfield. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of Stevie Wonder, for Christ's sake. There's a lot of great acts from the 70s that I didn't mention because, it's top 5. Isaiah says, thanks for your input, Steve. Yeah, 95% of the movie will take place in 2000, but how would you go about developing a quirky exposition in a spy thriller movie? You could have a character explain the development of the weapon and how it found its way onto the black market and maybe illustrate it with like a montage or something. There are ways to do it in a quick, quirky kind of funny way. Depending on, I assume the tone you're going for is kind of light, so you can sort of afford to, I think it's inherently kind of funny to deliver that backstory that's really complicated and it's about like this really, really deadly weapon, but to do it in kind of a loose sort of casual, humorous way. Like I think that juxtaposition of something really funny presented in kind of a frivolous way is sort of inherently amusing. Oh, Simon Moody, this is a good point about Jessica Fletcher and, not being able to see anyone other than Angela Lansbury as Jessica Fletcher. I'm sure back in the day, many saw Rathbone as the Holmes, but Cushing and later Brett were happily accepted versions. Yeah, Sherlock Holmes is another example where, Basil Rathbone wasn't the first live action Sherlock Holmes, but he was the one who sort of owned it in the 30s and 40s. And in the minds of a lot of people, he was Holmes. And then other people came and did it their way. And, now we see Sherlock Holmes kind of the way we see Hamlet, where it's like so many different actors have played him and put their stamp on it. And it's viewed as that instead of that's Basil Rathbone's character. Wolfram and Hart. Yes, I've seen that Werner Herzog clip. Yeah, where he's giving an interview and someone shoots him. Someone shoots him with a pellet gun, and he just continues with the interview. What a boss! Kirak with a member message says, I'm sorry for today's question. I'm trying to stay away from depressing news, but this one hit way too close to home. We voted to raise the minimum wage and some billionaire senator got it struck down. Yeah, I agree with you. It's horseshit. It's horseshit. And hopefully that billionaire senator faces electoral consequences for it in the future. I just felt useless. Our votes don't matter. No, they do matter. They do matter. Just because things don't go your way every single time, it doesn't mean the votes don't matter. They do matter. John Burns with a super chat. There's a new game, Europa Universalis 5. Okay. Enjoy. Brian with a super chat. I was a social worker for almost 20 years, and we need UBI or free rent and utilities now. Life is expensive. I agree. I support UBI 100%. Fleetwood Mac, there's another one. Dana, yes, Fleetwood Mac. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, 255 AD, there's always the chance that they will dismantle anything. That's the point. There's no such thing as permanent progress. The point is to make as much progress as you can for as long as you can, and then when they do get back in power and start to dismantle it, you resist against that, and you try to make that period of them trying to dismantle things as short as possible. But I mean, it can't be avoided forever. Do enough good things. Not that they can't, or I mean, they're going to try to dismantle it, but basically. Stephen G. Clenard says, fun fact, I've never watched Matlock, she wrote. The theme song is a fucking amazing mashup. Caitlin, now this isn't, can't wait until Star Trek and Star Wars become more like Holmes or Poirot. People may have their personal definitive version, but accept others. Yeah, I mean, I think if they continue to make new stuff in those franchises and other things, and occasionally revisit older characters with new actors, I mean, eventually it's going to happen. And as long as the work itself is good, there's no problem with that. I mean, I would also prefer if they focused more on new characters. Like, I don't necessarily think it would be a better idea to do like a new Star Trek show with new actors playing old characters again. I'd rather see a Star Trek show with new actors playing new characters, or a Star Wars show with new actors playing new characters. But there's no reason why you can't recast established characters with other actors. Like, there's not a reason in the world not to do that. And it would be nice at the very least to get the more obsessive, weird fans of those franchises used to that happening. So maybe they'd be a little less weird about it. Yeah, Steve, this is a great point. Steve Schmeling says, Mars saying Trump wasn't that guy at dinner is like visiting your abusive neighbor and saying, what's the big deal? I had dinner with Bob and he didn't beat his wife once. Exactly. It's the same thing. It reminded me a lot of whenever there's like an accusation of abuse against like a famous person, and inevitably there will be friends of that person who will come out and say, I can only describe the person I know, and the person I know never killed anybody. It's like, well, that doesn't prove anything. That doesn't prove anything. The accusation isn't he raped somebody while you were in the room, right? Like, the fact that, well, he seemed completely fine when I was with him, that means absolutely nothing. Leonard Skinner, sure. Neil Young, oh my God. That's a personal favorite of mine. You said Leonard Skinner, and I immediately thought Neil Young. That tells you where we're at here. Because I was like, Leonard Skinner, Neil Young. Southern man, better keep your head. Don't forget what your good book said. Southern change gonna come at last. Now your crosses are burning fast. Neil Young, motherfucker. Neil fucking Young. Stephen G. Clenard. I read that Fleetwood Mac was whacked on cocaine when they made that one album, the really popular one. Yeah, probably. That's what made it so good. 255 AD says, how do Thermians explain the fact that a lot of the events recorded in the history seem contradictory? Like Deep Impact and Independence Day both show Manhattan being destroyed. Ironically, the Thermians are completely cool about continuity errors. They're just kind of like, whatever. Can't really explain it. They both happened. Brian Baker says, could Jessica, a member message from Brian, thank you very much, says, could Jessica Fletcher be a ghost writer for Murder, She Wrote, like the Paramount series Matlock? Yeah, like there's like a JD Fletcher who's like a public figure, but then there's like the real Jessica is is actually someone else. Maybe, I don't know. Would that be a meaningful twist? Yeah, C-Mac, I said CCR in my top 5. Oh man, I love CCR. Oh man, I love CCR. I didn't leave out Billy Joel, Daryl. I said Billy Joel. Oh, well, Danielle, I hope I can help. Danielle says, I was watching Legal Eagle talk about Project 2025 and my stomach started knotting up so hard. I came over to you, Steve. Well, well, this stream is ending in a little over 10 minutes. So I hope I can give you some entertainment and comfort between now and then. Caitlin Thermians are like, wow, they rebuilt that fast. Yeah, exactly. Commentator makes a good point about the Marr thing. Marr's case is more akin to someone having seen the guy beat his wife and still going to have dinner with him, and after saying he may beat his wife, but he's very personable. Yeah, that's a better comparison, I think. 255 AD says, did you know one of Rosa Luxemburg's arguments against just doing social democracy is she thought it was intolerable to have social progress forever be like Sisyphus's boulder? Well, but what's the alternative? Favorite CCR songs? Ooh, Have You Ever Seen the Rain? Have You Ever Seen the Rain? I mean, I know you listed it. I mean, it's kind of cheating, but Have You Ever Seen the Rain is such a Or no, Have You Ever Seen the Rain? And Who'll Stop the Rain? I think I like that one even better. And I wonder, still I wonder, who'll stop the rain? Great fucking song. Oh. Don Quixote with a member message says, what is Sean O'Brien thinking, endorsing the tariffs on movies made out of the U.S.? It's called the International Brotherhood for a reason. Yeah, and also tariffs on the tariffs on international movies thing doesn't make any sense. There's no clarity on what that even means, on how they'll be calculated, on what would define a movie made out of the U.S., because a lot of movies are made all kinds of different places. Certain parts of production happen internationally. Certain parts of production happen domestically. It's just a bullshit idea. It's another fucking bullshit Trump idea. And the fact that anybody endorses it is ridiculous, especially a fucking labor leader. Stephen G. Clenard says, as long as you don't say the Eagles. Is it okay if I don't hate the Eagles? I'm not saying the Eagles are like one of my favorite bands, but I don't hate the Eagles. You'll notice I didn't volunteer the Eagles when listing my personal favorites. But I don't hate the Eagles. I'm sorry. If that's too far, if just not hating the Eagles is too much, then I will accept the consequences. Super chat from Kirok, thank you, my friend, says, I need a Star Trek question. Yes, fictional, but go with me. Headcanon. Why did the Jem'Hadar and the Vorta attack Odo? Is the Jem'Hadar and the Search, part 1 and 2? It's hard for me to answer that question because I don't care about the answer other than the real reason, which is the writers just hadn't thought of that bit about how they can't harm a founder yet. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure what the possible in-universe explanation is, and I'm the wrong person to ask because I don't care. Like, I don't care. CMX says Mar is way too narcissistic for all that. He can only understand that he was nice to him. Seems familiar. Yeah, they do have a lot in common, don't they? Fortunate Son is a great song. Yeah, Fortunate Son is a great song. Looking Out My Back Door. Yeah. You know, the thing about Creedence that I love, there are certain CCR songs, and I think Who'll Stop the Rain is one like this. And Have You Ever Seen the Rain too? Their Rain songs are very, very strong. There's something about like some of their songs and like certain country songs as well have this. And Sam Cooke, he was more of a 60s artist, but there's certain songs that just you listen to them and it sounds like they've always existed. You know what I mean? Like you can't imagine that someone sat down and wrote this song. It feels like it's just always been there. And it's difficult to articulate and difficult to quantify, but there are certain songs, and there are a couple of CCR songs that I feel that way about. Like I listen to it and I'm just like, did anybody even write this? Or has this just always been here? You know what I mean? Danielle says, have you seen Drooby the Marshmallow? I have not. Oh, Caitlin said, no, this is good. Caitlin said for the Odo thing. Caitlin says the Watsonian explanation is they hadn't seen him shapeshift, so they didn't know. Oh, I like that. That's nice and easy. That's nice and neat. There you go. But yeah, Caitlin, you and I have this. We share this. We both favor the Doylist explanation. And I don't know about you. I almost always to me, the Doylist explanation is all that's necessary for me. Because I know it's a work of fiction. And if it's a work of fiction that I care about and I think is good and I'm interested in, while also being aware that it's a work of fiction, I don't mind the odd little inconsistency here and there, especially if it's something that is, you know, a series that was produced over many years. And even more so if it's a series that is part of a franchise with many, many other series that were produced over even more years by even more groups of people. Like, I don't expect it to all be consistent, and I don't expect every little inconsistency to be explained. I get it. It's a show. It's a work, you know? Kirok, see, now we're talking Sam Cooke. Cupid, draw back your bow. Yes. What's my favorite Sam Cooke song? God. I mean, everybody likes A Change Is Gonna Come, which is like a really important song that was, you know, written about in the context of the civil rights movement. That's a great song. But there's another Sam Cooke song that I just fucking love. I can't think of it. I'm gonna have to look it up. Sam Cooke songs. As soon as I see it. Nothing Can Change This Love. That's it. I love that song so much. Bring It On Home to Me is good too, but no, Nothing Can Change This Love is such a beautiful song. If I go a million miles away, I'd write a letter each and every day, 'cause honey, nothing can ever change this love I have for you. I will spare you the rest, but God, what a great fucking song. Chain Gang, that's a good one, Brian. Especially the sound effects. Ooh, ha, that's the sound of the men working on the chain gang. Isaiah said Chain Gang too. Yeah. CMX says, where do I stand on Kenny Rogers' Lady? I prefer The Gambler. Twisting the Night Away. Yeah, that's a good one. Sam Cooke. I like Lady's fine. I like, you know. Yeah, I guess we are kind of talking music, Greg. Danielle says, oh my, Steve, you simply must watch a Drooby. He is the most vicious Canadian I've ever heard. The channel's his inner Shorzy. I truly think you would laugh. I'll check it out. I'll try to remember that. Oh, Darth Eddie. CMAC asked me about this earlier, Andor Season 2. I like certain things about it better. It still mostly has the same problems that season 1 had, but I do think the pacing problem has improved a little bit in these more recent episodes. Um, Overall, I don't think it's a major improvement. It's still pretty much the same show that it was in season 1. But the pacing has gotten a little better. A little better. I am still very, very disappointed that Andor mostly just stands off to the side and watches things happen, or more often watches things not happen. Oh, thank you, Isaiah. I'm okay for a completely untrained singer. You Send Me, yeah. I mean, there's no bad Sam Cooke song. There's no bad Sam Cooke song. Sam Cooke is can't miss. Okay, Plasma Burn Death says regarding ICE, oh my God, they found me. I don't know how, but they found me. Run for it, Marty. Who? Dr. Emmett Brown. Who do you think? The Libyans. Oh my God, yes, because I guess we're going to start deporting people to Libya. It just keeps getting better. You know, it just keeps getting better. Caitlin, that's interesting. How do you think Poirot is quite similar to Trek? Okay, you're saying it. Okay. I'll just have to be careful. I'll just have to be patient and wait for you to to explain. There's broad societal critiques through its one-off characters, mysteries that are more about watching the character's method of solving than about the mystery itself. Okay, I can see this. 255 AD, that Argentinian couple, would you feel bad for them if they themselves ended up detained by ICE? No. I mean, it would still be an injustice. Like, I still don't think it should happen. But would I feel bad for them specifically? No, fuck them. Fuck them. And Caitlin says, and the wandering protagonists who are often drawn away from their usual act. Yeah, I can see that. It does fit. I mean, it's not just Star Trek. There are a lot of shows that kind of fit that general format. But yes, it does have that in common for sure. It does have that in common for sure. And Poirot, I mean, Poirot is very much in the mold of a Star Trek protagonist. I mean, his personal eccentricities are a little much for a Star Trek character, at least for a lead Star Trek character, but he's almost always the smartest person in the room. He's almost never wrong, right? That's a Star Trek character. That's a Star Trek lead. That's like the captain of the starship. That's the smartest guy who's almost always right and almost always wins. That's Poirot, and that's the captain of a starship. Brian Baker, disco sucks. The music, not the Star Trek show. I like some disco. I'm not going to say I'm a fan of every single disco song ever recorded, but I like some disco songs. Yeah, Caitlin says, it hit me when Poirot was bouncing off of Hastings and Lemon. Reminded me of Data and Riker or Cisco and Dax. Yeah, I see that. I can definitely see that. What a Bezzy 88 says, love your political videos, but I was introduced to you by your Hackman video. Well, thank you. I'm very glad to see that. Yeah, Gene Hackman, one of the all-time greats. All right, I'm going to start wrapping things up. Please take note of some random geek sharing the links in the chat for some friends of ours who need help. Plasma Burn Death says, what did you think about my comment on we hate all people supporting Trump enabling him? Isn't that okay? They will also kill lots of people. Ari O'Brien and the wounded. I mean, I think there's a difference between saying, saying about the people who support Trump, fuck them, we don't need them, and like actively hating them or trying to make bad things happen to them. I don't think we should be like carrying out a crusade against them. We should just be, and we should not, and we should be, if they do start acting violently, we need to deal with that. But I just think we need to stop. We as Democrats, leftists, liberals, progressives, whatever, we need to stop worrying about what they think about stuff and trying to get them on our side. I think that's a waste of time. Okay, now I'm going to go through my end of my end of show spiel. So if anybody has any final questions or comments in the live chat, go ahead and throw them in, and I'll try to get to a few final ones before we end the stream. But some random geek was just posting links in the live chat. Don't forget, you can also go to charitylinks.page to find a lot of those links in a centralized location. If you can afford to help out some friends of ours who need a helping hand, please do so, because as Dana always says, helping people is good. As for me, if you'd like to help me continue to produce this YouTube channel and, pay my bills and all that stuff, if you can afford it and if you think I'm worth it, you can become a supporter of this channel by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives and becoming a patron, or by clicking the join button to become a channel member. One of the perks that you receive for becoming a patron or a member at any level from $1 a month on up is you get to submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams that I do twice a month. Those are the questions that I always answer in the first portion of the show that were submitted ahead of time by my patrons and channel members. So please consider supporting this channel if my YouTube work means something to you. And again, if it won't take food off your table to do it, I would really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who is a patron or a channel member. Also, if you enjoy my my YouTube stuff, don't forget I'm a co-host on a couple of podcasts. These are part of the Lemmy Listen family of podcasts. I'm a co-host along with the brilliant Jason Harding on Late Seating, the movie review podcast, where Jason and I take a look at classic films and see if they deserve their reputation, be it good or bad. Our most recent episode of Late Seating is always one of my favorites because it's my birthday show where we watch one of my favorite movies. Sometimes it's a movie that I choose. Sometimes it's a movie that Jason chooses for me, but he knows that it's a movie I like. This time, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I love that movie. I have zero shame about loving that movie. Jason hates it. So it's a really, really fun show. You can listen to me talk about how much I love Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. You can listen to Jason talk about how much he despises every single fucking thing about it. It's great. And in addition to Late Seating, I am also on the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek themed comedy podcast. Myself, Jason, and Amanda Billings, formerly Dana. Dana has left the show, although we're going to try to entice her back for guest appearances every now and then. But we play original characters, our own characters who exist in the Star Trek universe, and Star Trek episodes kind of happen in the background as we are having our own adventures. And it's so much fun to do. Hopefully, if you listen to the show, you agree that it's fun to listen to. You find it entertaining and amusing. If you enjoy Star Trek, if you enjoy stuff that makes fun of Star Trek and sort of comedy-centered Star Trek stuff, I think you will really enjoy the Ensign's Log. So check it out if you have not already done so. And if you have been checking it out, please continue to check it out. I really appreciate it. Okay, let me take a few final passes through the live chat. I saw a couple of super chats drop in there. Here's one from Planet Mars. Thank you very much. Says, hi, Steve. Greetings from Canada. I, too, am progressive, and government should be center. Your video on Pope Leo, Pope Dope ending was funny. Thoughts on Marxists and the downfall of the Russian monarchy. I feel like they kind of replaced one shitty system with another. I don't know if it necessarily reflects badly on Marxism, but the specific form of Marxist-inspired government that was put in place by the Russian Revolution didn't turn out to be all that great. But then again, the czars were pretty fucking terrible too. So what are you going to do? And another super chat from Wolfram and Hart. Thank you very much. Says, I found watching late night comics like Seth Meyer help deal with the daily Trumpian nonsense, but it appears few Trump voters share this desire. Oh, I don't know what I would do without Seth Meyers. He's hilarious. I watch him regularly, and yes, he is hilarious and fantastic. And also, of course, John Oliver every week is a balm to my soul. What a Bezzy 88 says, do you have a letterboxd? I do not. Oh, Cara says it was fun tonight. Well, you're very welcome for me reading your question. Thanks for being here. CMAX says, did you say Simon and Garfunkel? No, I didn't, but there's another one. I think some of those songs are from the 60s, and the question was about the 70s. But yes, I love Simon and Garfunkel. My God, I love isn't The Boxer a great fucking song? Well, I mean, there the other ones you mentioned there too. Mrs. Robinson, Sound of Silence, Scarborough Fair. I mean, there's just so many great Simon and Garfunkel songs. But yeah, they're great. They're fantastic. The Jabuki says, Steve, you in that movie should get a room. I love Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. You know what? I watched it for the podcast. Jason and I did the podcast. And then that night I watched it again because I had just watched it. So I had to watch it again. A really good indicator of if I am about to watch Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is if I just watched Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. It's one of those movies where I watch it and I think I should watch this again. And then I do. And I'm happy all over again. Oh, 255 AD, this is a good question. Do you think Bill Maher would say the same thing about a dinner with someone like AOC? Would he even go? I don't know, but I would hope that AOC wouldn't invite him. Yeah, Caitlin, Quantum Leap for sure. Quantum Leap. MacGyver in a way, because MacGyver often has Pete by his side, or Jack Dalton or Nikki or some other character for MacGyver to kind of bounce off of. Yeah, it's a really sturdy formula. You know, there are a lot of shows, a lot of like, mystery action adventure type shows from the 70s and 80s and 90s that have that general structure. It works pretty well if you have charismatic leads and decent enough scripts. Yeah. All right. I'm going to call it there. Seth Meyers loves Andor. Just saying. Oh, look, people, Wolfram Hart. It's fine if people like it. I mean, just because I don't like it as much as other people do, doesn't mean I begrudge anybody liking it. Like, lots of people I respect like it more than I do. It doesn't make me like it anymore, but I'm glad they like it. Anyway, that's it, everybody. I'm calling it a night. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for all of the great conversation. Thank you especially for the super chats that a lot of you contributed this time. I really, really appreciate it. And of course, thanks to all of you who are patrons and members and long-term supporters. I could not do this without you. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Please take care of yourselves. And I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.